I welcome to the sixth session of the third module. In this module, let us discuss about the temperature distribution does takes place in the uh, solar flat plate collectors. Actually, in the previous module, we have discussed the losses that takes place in the solar flat plate collector. Among all the three losses which takes place in the top, bottom, and the side losses, the top loss is being found to be of major importance, where the combination of convection and the radiation will come into pictures. We have derived a number of equations, simple equations based on this Newton's law of cooling as well as the Stephen Boltzmann law of heat radiations. We have discussed it. Also, the overall heat transfer coefficient with a individual loss coefficient of the top surface, individual loss coefficient at the bottom, and individual loss coefficient at the side walls, during which we have also made a number of assumptions like a steady state, one dimensional. So these are all the things that we have considered it. After considering it, we have achieved the heat loss coefficient overall as well as the individual also. Summing up of bottom, top and side walls heat coefficient will gives us a overall heat transfer coefficient, that is given by U, watts per meter square degree kelvins. Now when it comes to the temperature distribution between tubes and the collector efficiency factors is always given by this. If you take a tube, now if you take this, a rectangular plate is nothing but a sheet or a absorber plate, and there is a tube in which having a diameter of di as an internal diameter and d naught as an external, d as an external diameter, and then we also have the fluid inside the tube which is moving with a temperature of T suffix F will tells you the fluid temperature, and TB is nothing but the base plate temperature, and this is the width. If you see this, after consideration, delta is the thickness of this plate, and there is a bonding, as you can see minorly a black color which is highlighted over here. It is nothing but a bond. I always told you, between the observer plate and to the tube we can weld it by the mechanical pressure, by soldering or by brazing. That's okay. So enough contact should be there. If you consider the temperature distribution between two tubes, first and the second tubes can be derived if we temporarily assume the temperature gradient in the flow direction is negligible. Consider the sheet tube configuration which has been shown in the below figure, and the distance between the tubes is, if you assume the one more dotted line which is shown, see here is one more tube, a neighboring tube. Between the center of the one tube and the center of the other tube is always given by a width W by 2. Is it clear? And then this is in the x direction, and the distance between the center of one tube to the circumference or the outer surface of the other tube is always given by W minus D divided by 2. Is that clear? Then the distance between the tubes is W. Distance between tubes is W. The tube diameter is D, and the sheet is thin with the thickness of delta. Because the sheet material is a good conductor, the temperature gradient through the sheet is negligible. When it is conducting through a thorough conduction is taking place through the tube, or the with the plate, so the conduction or the temperature gradient with this sheet is negligible, because it also has a negligible thickness also. Okay, we will assume if you have a more thicker covering layer, then what happens, the solar radiations will not be penetrating into that much, so we will be penetrating with the lower solar radiations into that. So hence we always take a lower thickness of delta. We will assume the sheet above the bond is at some local base temperature. This is assumed to be a base temperature, that is TB. The region between the center line separating the tubes and the tube base can be considered as a classical fin problems. Fins, once I guess I have told you, fins is nothing but added surface area, something like this. We are just adding a number of tubes like this. One tube, one, two tubes. They are all nothing but fins. It is something like this. It will have a number of tubes like this. An extended area, an extended surface or an extended area which provides, which increases the area for heat transfer. That is what we call it as a fins. Fins are used in our heat exchangers like radiators. We use it in radiators. We use it in popularly engines, IC engines. You can see it in your bikes where the engine is there. You can always see a granular one. These fins can be of any shape. It can be circular, it can be taper, it can be a rectangular, it can be of any shapes. Is it clear? So these basically, a fin is an extended surface or an extra protruded surface which increases the surface available for the heat transfer. That is what we call it as the fins. So here we are just assuming as a fin problem. The fin shows in the figure number so and so. The next I'll just show you is of length W minus D divided by 2. An elemental region of width delta x and unit length in the flow directions is shown in the figure. The elemental region of width delta x, I just shall show you over here. Now this is a very nice one. Okay, this is a delta x is an elemental area. Okay, x is from which it has been considered. This hashing one is shows us is an insulated one. Leftmost portion of this fin is an insulated one, and this is a delta x, and this it is from the distance of x. Delta x is nothing but, if you take this as a fin, I will consider a small elemental area. As we discussed in the previous session, we have taken a small delta x. This is nothing but a small elemental area. Then we will differentiate that. Is that clear? So let us take this W minus D divided by 2. It is completely, as you can see, this is nothing but W minus D into 2. I have taken only this area from this from dotted line to the outer surface of this. Now you can get an idea. So this is the area that we have taken. This is a TB, and this is of delta is of the thickness. So it is just as the conduction is taking place at this section. The same thing it is living out here. If you take this section, I have cut this, and my only area of interest is, please observe it here carefully. I have taken only the dotted line from the figure A. I have taken the only in and around of this delta x. As you can see it here, the rate of heat conduction into this left side surface should be is equal to the rate of heat conduction at the right side. Now what is this? This is a minus Ka delta T divided by delta x at x. Because of the length, what happened? There will be a change in conduction. Because of the length, there will be a change in conduction. Why it is so happening? One example I would like to give you. If you take an element like this, I will hold it at this place. I'm heating. Now you just take this, my finger is a heat source. If I start heating this tip, what happens? Heat will start flowing from this direction to this direction. Am I right or wrong? At this temperature, I will take this as a T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, T6, T7. Now this is the T end and T is 1. The temperature at this point will be more compared to the temperature at this point. Temperature at this point is more compared to the temperature at this point. Temperature here, it is more compared to the temperature at here. So what is happening? Maximum temperature is here. Why? Because the heat source is here. Because of the length or the thickness, what is happening is there is a change in the temperature because the conduction is taking place. So the same thing will happen over here also. Minus Ka delta T by delta x is a Fourier law of heat conduction. It is from the Fourier law of heat. Actually, while talking about the top loss coefficient, we dealt with convection and radiation, where the convection is by the Newton's law of cooling and radiation is by the Stephen Bohr's law of radiation. Now here we are talking about only the conduction. Now this is given by Fourier, is the one a scientist who has given this equation, Fourier law of heat conduction. According to that, The rate of heat transfer is directly proportional to cross-sectional area. When we talk about convection and radiation, we always take a surface area. When we talk about conduction, we always take a cross-section. Now, my dear friends, this is a surface area. As you can see, this is a surface area. If I cut this, whatever this is nothing but cross-sectional area. So Fourier law of heat conduction derives that the rate of heat transfer by conduction is directly proportional to cross-sectional area and temperature gradient. Is directly proportional to cross-sectional area and temperature gradient. Temperature gradient is nothing but delta T divided by delta X. What do you mean by delta T? Change in temperature. What do you mean by delta X? Thickness. So the change in temperature with respect to the thickness of the material, that is what we call it as a temperature gradient. So Q is directly proportional to AC, cross-sectional area, into delta T by delta X. Proportionality constant is been removed and we keep minus K. K is nothing but thermal conductivity of the material. While talking about convection, I told proportionality constant was removed by and placed a H in that. Whereas here we are placing a K is a material property, H is a fluid property. Is that clear? So this is the idea behind of it. So after summarizing it, maybe my dear friends, this is two small words, letters you may not be able to see here. Same thing I have written it in the below equation. It is been given in the below equation. As you can see, it is S into delta X minus UL into delta X. Hope you remember S is nothing but the absorbed solar energy or the heat flux into delta X. Whatever the heat flux observed at this point is S into delta X minus UL. It is overall heat transfer coefficient into delta X into T minus TB. Okay, plus what is this? This is the beauty, minus K into delta into dt by dx across X. This is across X minus K delta T by delta X across the section. Idu X atra. At this surface it is X. At this surface same conduction with X plus dx is equated to 0. Where S is the absorbed solar energy defined by equation 5, the same equation, dividing through by delta X and finding the limits from delta X approaches to yields to. So I will change this to this simplified into del d square T divided by dx square minus UL divided by K into delta T minus TB minus S divided by U of L. This has been simplified to this. The two boundary conditions necessary to solve this second order differential equation, because this is a d square is there, so it is a second order differential equations. So what we do it is, we certain line unknown base temperature dt by dx at x equals to 0. This is what we assume it. By keeping this in the expression, then we get T of so and so will be equal to TB. So for the convection, m is equal to two variables, that is m and phi. M is equal to square root of UL by K delta, and phi, psi it is, psi is equal to T minus TB, which is minus S by, we just assume that, we just take T minus TB minus S by UL as psi, and M is equal to square root of M divided by K delta. So what we get it is, we substitute these two values into the above expression d square. So what we get it is d square phi divided by dx square is equal minus m square psi is equal to 0. Now this can be solved easily. There are two equations for this. This generalized expression we will get it is psi is equal to c1 sin hyperbolic of mx plus c2 cos hyperbolic of mx. The constant c1 and c2 can be removed and substituted by the results. That is what the idea behind of it. Then the detailed analysis of solar collector is a complicated problem. It's something like a project itself actually, according to me. But still we can do it. It is very interesting. I always encourage go for certain practical based projects. Fortunately, a relatively simple analysis will yield very useful results. These results show the important variables, how they are related, and how they affect the performance of a solar collector. To illustrate these basic principles, a liquid heating collector, as shown in the next figure actually, will be examined first. The analysis presents follows the basic variations by Willer and Hotel and Willer, who made a research work on these things in 1953 and 1977 itself. To appreciate the development that follows, it is desirable to have an understanding of the temperature distribution that exists in a solar collector constructed as shown in the figures. Okay, in the previous figures that we have shown it already. Region between two tubes. Some of the solar energy absorbed by the plate must be conducted along the plate to the region of tubes. Thus, the temperature midway between the tubes will be higher than the temperature in the vicinity of the tubes. The temperature above the tubes will be nearly uniform because of the presence of tube and a wide metal. It will be nearly equal. It is only because tube material will also be made up of a conductor. Good conductor, as I just told you, this is a black color one. This will be a good conductor of heat. Is okay. That is the reason why it will assumed to be same. The energy transferred to the fluid will heat the fluid, causing the temperature gradient to exist in a direction of flow. Since in any region of the collector, the general temperature level is governed by local temperature level of the fluid. A situation is shown in the figure is expected at any location of y. The general temperature distribution is always given here like this, as we can see it here. This is the two tubes for the assumptions. This is the reflection which is just taking place, and the solar radiations which are just falling on the wall. We have a first cover and we have a second cover, and we have an absorber plate, and there is a bonding, and this is an insulation. Sheet and tube solar collectors. The x direction is as shown in figure. Okay, in this figure at the bottom figure, this is what it tells us in the x direction, and this is the y direction which is shown over here. The temperature distribution in the y direction will is given by this figure, the D figure. Okay, to model the situation shown in figure 6.3.2, a number of simplifying assumptions, a number of a number of simplifying assumptions have been made to lay the foundation without a number of simplifying assumptions can be made without abstending or absconding anything that is the basic physical situations. These assumptions are also followed. Performance is a steady state, that is what we have observed it, and we observe it construction of the is of the sheet and parallel tubes types. The header cover a small area of a collector and can be neglected. That is, the thickness is been always neglected because it is a very thin in nature. The header provides a uniform flow to tubes. There is no absorption of solar energy by a cover in so far as it affects losses from the collector. That means whatever the cover we are just placing it, absorption by this flat plate is assumed to be zero, no absorption. Whereas when we compare with that absorber, it is the one which absorbing the more one, and the sheet which is only transmitting the solar radiations. This is the fluid which is making an entry. This is the x, and this is the y direction. If you see this at the x direction, this is how the heat is being uh, carried out by considering this. Whereas in the y direction, this is how the analysis is being done. Temperature distribution on any another plate from the diffuse and matte. Heat removal factors. Basically, currently the heat removal factor which is given by Fr is calculated as a ratio of actual useful energy gains to the useful energy gains. Actual to the real one is nothing but the heat removal uh, factor. When the whole collector surface is at the fluid inlet temperature, the heat removal factor is the ratio of actual heat transfer to the maximum possible heat transfer through the collector. What is the actual heat transfer and what is the maximum heat transfer? That's nothing but heat removal. Is okay. A special case showing the effect of phase change material on FR is being given over here. During the testing and modeling, it is hard to calculate the exit fluid temperatures because it is a dynamic system. It keeps changing. An iterative solution is required. Therefore, in north part of the America, the inlet fluid temperature is used to characterize the solar collector performance. That is, the efficiency equation is given by QU by GT. Actually, we used to take the temperature, the area also, where unit surface area. We are just calculating it for a unit surface area. So it is nothing but what is the actual heat loss taken place to the maximum possible of heat transfer. So QU by GT is always given by the heat removal factor FR into tau and alpha, that is transmissivity and observability, with the heat removal factor minus heat removal factor, we can take it common outside actually, into UL, the overall loss coefficient, into T6 minus T ambient. Is it clear? This is TFE actually. TFE, which is nothing but exit fluid temperature. TFE, which is nothing but exit fluid temperature minus T ambient temperature divided by GT. By incorporating this heat removal factor, the expression has been changed into so much. And the accounts for the fact that the fluid entering the collector is heated in the direction of flow and consequently is not all the same temperatures as the inlet fluid. It is also unitless and has a value of varies between 0 to 1. Obviously, it is any ratio, it is doesn't have any units, but this value varies between 0 to 1. The efficiency factor of the collector. Efficiency factor, it is given by F dash. It is a representation of how a segment of solar thermal collector transfers absorbed energy S. S is nothing but the solar radiations or the solar flux that has been absorbed through the metal fin riser collector and into the coupled heat exchange fluid locally. One method is to compute the thermal efficiency of a collector, which is the ratio of the average heat output from the collector divided by the rate that solar radiation strikes the panel. I is given by the solar radiation intensity striking the collector. Okay, it is given by uh, the basic method of measuring the collector performance is to expose the operating collector to solar radiation and measure the fluid inlet and outlet temperatures and the fluid flow rate. The useful gain is given by Q of U is equal to M dash. It is nothing but a mass flow rate in terms of kgs per second, and the Cp, which is nothing but a fluid specific heat. It's given by kilojoules or joules per kg degree centigrade. T naught and T minus Ti is nothing but outlet minus T inlet temperatures. What is always happens whenever a hot, if this is a hot tube, if the water is making an entry here, along the length of the tube, it is taking the heat of the fluid and it comes out as a hot fluid. This is Ti and this is T naught. If it is a water, M mass flow rate, Cp of water is nothing but 4.18. Mass flow rate, how fast it just goes. What is the amount of mass of the material which is moving with respect to the time? That is nothing but kgs per second, which tells us what is the useful gain. Collector's mean plate temperature, which is always given by the express. Before I give the expressions, collector's mean plate temperature, observer plate temperature is directly related with the collector thermal losses. This shows the collector radiates more heat than expected taking into account of T star. That is, the observer plate temperature is directly related to with the collector thermal losses. It is only because as the thermal losses reduces, observer plate temperature will be increases. Okay, in this equation, the thermal efficiency is the ratio between useful heat absorbed by the heat carrier fluid and the incident energy over the collector surface. The flat plate systems normally operate and reach the maximum efficiency within the temperature range from 30 to 80 degrees centigrade. That is what the limit, as we have discussed. It's a domestical applications, and even it can reach also 200 degrees centigrade by other alternative methods. However, some new types of collectors that employ the vacuum insulation can achieve higher temperatures up to 100 degrees centigrade, and even we have also discussed in the first session, it can also be used to increase the temperature up to 200 degrees centigrade. Now the expression is being given here. The collector efficiency is equal to the optical efficiency minus the K1 into delta T divided by Eg minus K2 into delta T square divided by Eg, whereas K1 is nothing but the heat loss correlation values in watts per meter square degree kelvins, and K2 is equal to heat loss correlations values in watts per meter square degree Kelvin square. Temperature delta T is nothing but the temperature differentials in degree kelvins. Eg is nothing but irradiance in watts per meter square, whereas this collector efficiency also depends upon this optical efficiency of the material. This is the expression of a collector efficiency. Now let us talk about instantaneous efficiency. Instantaneous efficiency is nothing but at that particular time what is an immediate conversion of the solar energy into thermal energy or useful work. That is what we call it as an instantaneous efficiency. It is given in order to determine the solar collector performance. We perform a calculation of the instantaneous efficiency, which is defined as a ratio of the useful energy to the total radiant incident on the collector surface. Instantaneous efficiency means the amount of energy removed by the transfer of fluid over a given measuring period divided by the total incident radiations onto the gross collector's area during the measuring period. So that is, it is as simple as that. That means if you have a collector over here, the instantaneous efficiency is nothing but whatever the heat amount of energy that is being removed by the, if there is a water tubes which are here perpendicularly like this, the water tubes, whatever the amount of heat that is being carried away by this water or a fluid in the tubes, the total of energy that is being carried away by the flowing fluid to the, in the denominator, it is nothing but the total incident radiations which are falling onto this collector area during the measuring period. That is what we call it as the instantaneous efficiency. It is given by eta of I, which is equals to sigma, that is the integration of Qu useful work with respect to dt. That means with respect to the time we are going to integrate it. Integration means we are just adding the total useful work, the total sum of the useful work with respect to the time divided by collector area. That is what we have told here, gross collector area into Gp. It's nothing but the solar incident radiations. The solar incident radiations keeps changing with respect to the time. So completely summing up of this, that is integrating this with respect to the time. Gt at 0 time, Gt at 1 minute, Gt at 2 minutes. So integrating between the limits will gives us the total solar radiations or incident radiations. So this is in the denominator and this is in the numerator. It is once again the total amount of energy that is being taken away. At 0 seconds, what is the heat taken? At 1 minute, what is the amount of heat that is being carried? At 2 minutes, what is the amount of heat that is being carried away by this fluid? So the sum of this divided by the sum of this, that will give us instantaneous efficiency. Now eta I is also equals to Qu divided by Ag into dt, which is given by incorporating this, the same expression, if I'm not wrong, the same expression I'm just keeping over there, the heat removal factor. If you use the heat removal factor, then the expression thus reduces to this form. Okay, this is the one who tells us. In the last uh, part of this, let us discuss what are the effects of various parameters on the collector performances. We shall discuss in the next class. In the next session, we shall consider.